On today's podcast, we sit down with legendary A&R executive Kim Buie. From discovering talent in smoke-filled clubs to navigating the era of streaming and AI-driven discovery, Kim has witnessed and shaped every major transformation in the music industry over the past 4 decades. She's worked closely with icons like Island's Chris Blackwell and Capitol's Jimmy Bowen, brought artists like Ryan Bingham, Sturgill Simpson, and Caroline Rose into the spotlight, and helped artists thrive on both major and independent labels. Today, we'll talk about the evolution of A&R, what defines a distinctive artist, the biggest obstacles holding talent back, and the hidden challenges an A&R pro faces in breaking new artists in the current landscape. Plus, Kim shares invaluable career advice, inspiring stories, and the books and films that have shaped her remarkable journey. This is one episode you can't afford to miss. Insiders, are you ready?
Welcome to MUBUTV's Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch Eric and Eric Knight. Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we sit down with legendary A&R executive Kim Buie. Over the last 4 decades, Kim has been at the heart of every major transformation in the music industry, from the smoke-filled club days of talent discovery to the age of streaming and AI-driven hits. She's worked alongside icons such as Island's Chris Blackwell and Capitol Records' Jimmy Bowen, champion artists such as Sturgill Simpson, Ryan Bingham, and Caroline Rose, and navigated both major and independent labels with an unmatched sense of taste and passion. In this conversation, we explore how the role of A&R has evolved, the unique freedoms and challenges of independent labels, what it really takes to discover and develop groundbreaking talent in today's market, and the single biggest obstacle that holds artists back. Kim also shares stories that span NWA to William Burroughs and offers essential advice for artists, A&R aspirants, and anyone committed to building a true career in music. Trust us, you do not want to miss this episode. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey Insiders, ready to crush it in the music world? Whether you're an artist, band, or future music biz pro, MUBUTV's personalized coaching is your secret weapon.
We'll work with you side by side, sharpening your songs, building your brand story, locking in your ideal audience, and powering up your social media game.
Starting fresh or ready for the next level, we cover everything. Live shows, marketing hacks, branding, all tailored just for you.
Flexible coaching packages let you decide what fits your time and budget. Single sessions or discounted bundles that make investing easy.
Imagine the boost after just one session. Clearer goals, smarter strategies, and unstoppable confidence. Get started with a free 15-minute discovery call at book.mubutv.com. That's book.mubutv.com. Let's make your music career unstoppable. Hey Insiders, are you ready to take serious control of your music career? Whether you're dreaming of getting signed, finding the perfect artist manager, or landing your music in movies and TV shows, MUBUTV has you covered with 3 essential free guides.
First, learn how to contact A&R the right way. The insider secrets to approaching executives without burning bridges and with confidence.
Next, discover how to attract the right artist manager, when to start looking, what to expect, and how to find someone who truly believes in your vision.
And finally, unlock the world of sync licensing with how to pitch to music supervisors the right way. Get your music placed in film and TV, reach new audiences, and open up exciting revenue streams.
These guides are packed with real-world advice, practical steps, and the do's and don'ts every artist needs.
If you're listening on this podcast or watching on YouTube, just check the description below to download your free copies now. This is your blueprint for turning dreams into reality. Don't miss out.
Hi, this is Ed Poston, Head of A&R at Symphonic Distribution, and you're listening to the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured guest is with legendary A&R executive Kim Buie. This is a conversation that, we had been wanting to have for a while. I have known Kim since the 80s.
Yeah, I've heard of Kim for years.
Yeah, I mean, she is a legendary A&R executive and a brilliant one who has worked with so many great artists. And I mean, this was a wonderful conversation from a pro who really knows A&R from the ground up, from many, many, many different eras of the music business. And Kim continues to work today. She has worked at majors. She has worked on the independents. She knows the distinction of both. One of the things that she talked about that I thought was so important, she was so clear on what she called the 3 pillars of A&R. The 3 things: unique voice, distinctive sound, and very strong songwriting. I think she said, securing 2 of these is good, all 3 is exceptional. And that's what it really takes today.
Right.
And when we talk about the talent that she worked with, a lot of great, great artists out there, which is what always attracted her, was that maverick kind of unique vision.
I also thought in this conversation, Rich, and we've talked about it before with other guests and among our conversations, you and I together, the importance of team members and how she outlines the significance of a solid artist team, including the manager, booking agent, publisher, and PRO relationships. And, we talk about that whole idea of like a bicycle wheel and the spokes within that wheel. There's like 7 or 8 different areas that you really have to kind of have down in order to really build a robust team. And I thought it was great that she emphasized that in this conversation.
Without exception, what's so wonderful, I think, about our insiders hearing these conversations is how you will continually hear certain themes.
Similar themes, yeah.
Being reinforced and emphasized regardless of the genre.
Absolutely. And with that, insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation with Kim Buie.
Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So happy to have you. Kim, when I think of your career, you have witnessed the music business transform through, I guess, every major disruption over the last 40 years. You've seen talent discovery shift from smoke-filled clubs to algorithms on screens. And my question is, how have the core responsibilities of A&R evolved in today's music industry, especially in an era that's dominated by streaming, social media, and AI-driven discovery?
Yeah, I am what you might call a veteran and a survivor and a bit of old school philosophy. Having the great honor to work with, for many years, people like Jimmy Bowen and Chris Blackwell, probably being the longest and the greatest mentor I've ever had, and Luke Lewis when I was working with Lost Highway. All 3 of these men had something that, I felt was intuitive to me, which is just the simple idea of trusting your own sense of taste and your gut instinct. I have watched it change. I've seen or heard of other labels really, hiring people to scour Spotify or YouTube to search for talent. But I've really depended more on relationships throughout the entirety of my career.
Kim, so great to have you on the show. I wanted to ask you early on in your career, and it's a great segue from our previous, for your previous answer. Early on in your career, you worked with some major heavyweights, as you've just mentioned, Island founder Chris Blackwell and the renowned Jimmy Bowen, which you just mentioned. What did you learn from each of them?
Jimmy Bowen really laid out the fundamentals of the job. Every year he would have the entire staff sign, NDAs, and then we go to a local hotel, and we would be there for over the course of 2 days, and he would walk us through like every budget for every artist, and then they'd have like a guest come in, like Glenn Meadows, who really was the head of Masterphonics. And so when digital was coming in, he was talking to us about ones and zeros and what that meant, and played us examples of things that hadn't been remastered for digital and then things that had been mastered for digital. And it was really just such a great experience to have a just hands-on knowledge about budgets for all the artists on the rosters, maybe some of those that were not going to survive to make a second record. But it was a great education. After work, the in-house A&R / producers like Tony Brown or Dick Hungate, Dirt, Chip Harding, Emery Gordy Jr. All of these guys were, previous artists in their own right as musicians. And so they really looked at every record that they produced from their own perspective, their own lens. And so I get to go to the studios after work, like Loretta Lynn's making a record. Go ahead, yeah, come over, stop by. Or Roger Miller, which was probably one of the greatest highlights, just be able to be in the room and watch him and hear him sing and have him come into the room and talk to me. So I was very lucky. And being based in Nashville with Jimmy Bowen, it also had other advantages. I would go over to the old Country Music Hall of Fame. There was a gentleman who worked there. He'd let me go down into their library and hear things that I had never heard before. So I was just a gigantic sponge and took it all in. So I felt like that was great training for me. I only made a couple of records there, one of them being with T-Bone Burnett, and still considered one of his best solo records ever. I'm really proud of it, although I also think that the most latest record that he released was pretty great too.
And what about Chris Blackwell?
Chris, going in and working at Island Records with Chris, I had all that great fundamental knowledge that I had gotten from Jimmy Bowen, and what I was able to glean from that experience and bring it forward when I went to work at Island. I was hired by Lou Maya, who was the acting day-to-day president for Blackwell. And so the first time I met Chris, it was in a meeting in LA where I was re-establishing a West Coast base as head of A&R in Los Angeles. So Chris, this meeting happens. Chris is there. I walk in. That's the first time I meet Chris. And it was these two women who had a jam box that they were holding onto with a cassette inside, played it, and then proceeded to sing in front of us. And as soon as they finished a couple of songs, Chris looks at me and says, "What did you think?" So, like, oh my God, he wants my opinion. But, I basically just trusted my own instinct and said, I think they have really great voices, but the songs just weren't quite sinking in. And then Chris turned and looked at them and just says, "I agree with her."
Wow.
So I'd say we got off to a pretty great start, but Chris really nurtured in me the sort of gut instincts that I had, and he recognized it and really just gave me the latitude to find new things and bring them to the table. And then again later, when he started Palm Pictures, I went to there and continued working with Chris. So cumulatively, I worked with him for over 12 years. And, we've stayed in touch over the years. And, I just love the guy. I mean, it sort of beyond mentor, I just kind of felt a soul connection with him, and a very great understanding of how you look at talent, and what you like about them, and how you can articulate what you believe that they are capable of. This was at a time when you could bring in an artist, and generally what you would have this expectation for is that they would be developed over the course of 3 records. If they hadn't grown, then they probably wouldn't make it past the 3rd record. But it was just really great to be able to work in an environment like that.
No, absolutely. Did you by chance, of course, read his autobiography?
I'm not all the way through it yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I listened to it on. It's like I get you what do you call it, book on tape. But it was on CD, and
Yeah.
he writes it in the first person, and Bill Nye, the actor Bill Nye, does the voice for Chris in the book. So it was quite interesting, that because this is somebody who came from a very different kind of background, very traditionally English, and how he got into music and that whole story. So it's quite fascinating. But
I know the story. I know the story well. And he made his own fortune.
Yes. Yes.
Again, by trusting his own taste.
Absolutely. Yes, very much so. I want to ask you, throughout your career, you have navigated both major and independent labels, as well as label services and marketing companies. Can you share a story or think of a story that, where the freedom of an independent label allowed an artist or a project to thrive in a way that a major label couldn't happen?
Well, first, I'd like to say that I think both majors and independents have their assets.
Yes.
And then they have their weaknesses.
Absolutely.
I can never say that one is better than the other. The difference for me is really how many other people that you were working with and competing with, really, to find talent and bring it into the fold. But at the moment, without giving it too much thought, Ryan Bingham comes to mind as someone that I had heard and flew to Austin, Texas to see him. I had played it for Luke Lewis prior to going, and he's like, "Go get him." He trusted me, and he gave me the opportunity to go and see him and hear him. And as I'm sitting there watching Ryan, it's like, I just immediately understood that everything that he was singing about, if you weren't really sort of diving into this sort of deeper level of what he was giving you in a song, you might miss it. But he was true. I mean, everything that he wrote about was very real to him. So he wasn't trying to be anything other than himself. And about halfway through the set that I saw, it just clicked. And I knew that was somebody I wanted to bring in. And Luke said, "Great, yay, let's do it." And we made 3 records with him, and each one of them sold more than the last one. Now, if you go back to that very first record, Mescalito, that one's probably in the long haul has probably been is the biggest seller of the records that we did with them. And then from there, I transitioned over to 30 Tigers and brought Ryan with me, brought Hayes Carl with me, brought Lucinda Williams with me. And, it was just really great for me to be able to do that. And then to basically build on what we were able to accomplish at Lost Highway, where there were bigger budgets and marketing and resources and tour support, all those things that perhaps a bigger company can afford to invest. So by the time I went to 30 Tigers and these artists were there, Lucinda already had a very qualified career when I was working with her at Lost Highway. But it was coming to 30 Tigers, that gave them the ability to have ownership over their music and to take everything that they've accomplished within, major adjacent label with Lost Highway, which is under Universal, and MCA Nashville, where Luke Lewis was president. It just really allowed them to have ownership over their music, over the records they made. And I was really proud of being able to do that. I always say that if you get them to a certain sales base and platform, and they found their audience, and ticket sales are increasing from record to record, and support slots are, just adding more volume to fans that they are gaining. When you get to something like 30 Tigers, that's when that base that's already been built can be taken even further, and their earning potential is there. I mean, it's their label, it's their record, it's theirs to own. 30 Tigers is really a distribution company with label services, and I learned a lot being there, and it was pretty great. The goal should always be that any artist that you bring in can do what they love for the rest of their lives, if that's what they choose to do.
Yeah, and a company like 30 Tigers certainly made that possible.
Kim, given your extensive history in A&R, can you talk to us about what specific factors, both creatively and non-creatively, were always important to you with artists you were interested in signing, and how has that criteria evolved over time for you?
Any artist that I look at, there are essentially three things that I look at. Are they vocally unique? Are they distinctive? Do they have a sound that is unique and distinctive and is theirs wholly? And what is the songwriting level? So if you can get two out of those three, that's pretty darn good. If you get all three, that's pretty great. So after that, after you sort of make that sort of gut assessment and you feel like some of those, let's say they are great songwriters and they have a sound that is unique to who they are. And sometimes the voice is just a creative force that, if you hear one of their songs on the radio and you hear that voice, then you know exactly who it is. Mick Jagger has a very distinctive voice. A song comes on the radio and it's Mick Jagger. And those are the kinds of things that that I've always used to evaluate things that I'm looking at. Songs, melody, distinctiveness, uniqueness, song craft, and vocal style. Those are all really important qualities that you hope to find in something that you become very passionate about. After you sort of cross that bar, then you look at, is there a manager? Is there a booking agent already in place? Do they have a publisher? Who's their PRO? You look at all of the tentacles, because a record label only earns off of the record, but the artist can earn from publishing, they can earn from their PROs, they can earn from touring. Yeah, so, they have many tentacles that can generate income for them. And that's great. And sometimes, especially when you're dealing with a very young or brand new artist, and let's say they do have a publisher in place, it is not unlikely for me to reach out to that publisher, especially where tour support is needed, to see what kind of investment they might be willing to help us with. And and sometimes BMI, I know from experience, has done something similar. It's not common, but depending on who the artist and depending on where they are and what they're trying to accomplish, sometimes support can happen there too. But publishers and labels have the biggest investments into any artist.
Hey, insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured conversation. Stay tuned because we've got so much value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor. Hey there, insiders. Are you dreaming of making it big as a musician, artist, or industry pro? Well, at MUBUTV, we offer personalized coaching to help you turn that dream into reality.
Think of us as your personal guides, helping you polish your songs, craft your story, find your fans, and grow your social media like a pro.
No matter where you are in your journey, we've got the tools and strategies to take you higher. From live gigs to branding and marketing, our coaching is all about you.
Choose what fits your budget, from single sessions to value-packed bundles.
Start with a free 15-minute discovery call today at book.mubutv.com. Your music career is waiting. Remember why you started making music? That feeling of passion, hope, and longing, wanting someone to hear your story?
But chasing success can be confusing. Who do you reach out to? When? How do you avoid mistakes that could close doors?
At MUBUTV, we believe every artist deserves a clear path forward. That's why we've created 3 free guides that cover the essential skills every musician needs.
How to contact A&R executives with confidence. How to attract an artist manager who gets you. How to pitch your music for film film and television placements.
These aren't just tips. They're blueprints designed for artists who want more than just dreams. They want results.
If you're listening right now on this podcast or watching on YouTube, look in the description below. Download these free guides that will change how you approach your music career forever.
Don't wait. Your future fans are waiting.
Hi, this is Michael Epstein, head of marketing at Good Talk. Are you an insider? I am. Subscribe now.
You know, Kim, throughout your career, was there ever an artist that you championed early on when few others believed? And in hindsight, how did you navigate that? And what does it teach you about advocating for unconventional talent in today's climate?
2 stories.
Okay.
One was William Burroughs. He's a known poet and man of letters and arts, has a very fascinating history. And an opportunity just came to me, and this was when I was at Island Records, that someone was making 2 records, one with William Burroughs and the other one with Allen Ginsberg. I went to college in Lawrence, Kansas. William Burroughs was living in Lawrence at the time, so I was automatically intrigued. And if you approach something in a way that's responsible, there is opportunity there. You're not going to make a ton of money, but you're not going to lose money. And so we did a deal. And it's just a personal accomplishment, a personal achievement that had meaning and value to me, and that I was allowed to do it. Kind of a little minor miracle. But that, you know, I have to, again, chalk up to Chris Blackwell having understanding and got where my passion was coming from for that project. And, you know, we didn't invest a lot of money, and ultimately it made a little money, maybe not a lot, but it did. And then another one, this is one of those, the one that got away. I was very early on in looking at NWA, and I was living in Los Angeles at the time. And there's a guy named Maury Alexander who was partners with Jerry Heller, who was the primary management for NWA. And Maury brought him to me, and I was just immediately smitten. The first thing I heard was Eazy-E's Boys in the Hood. And that was that. And so I just asked Maury if I could meet the guys, and he arranged for that to happen. And Dr. Dre and I had become friends at the time, and they were going to be opening up for Public Enemy at Skateland down in Compton. And so Dr. Dre said, come to my house and we can drive there together. And, you know, he's like, whatever you do, don't wear red. Oh, and yeah, maybe don't wear black either. Just, you know, I was like, okay. And yeah, they were great. I just fell in love with them. And the deal would have included Eazy-E, NWA, JJ Fad, and Michelle A.
Wow.
And I lost the deal over $50,000. And then it went to priority, and then Michelle A and JJ Fad were taken to doing separate deals. And a year later, Island Records in the UK paid an awful lot of money to have the rights there and for Europe and the rest of the world. So it was bittersweet. Yeah.
You know, 2 more acts, you know, Caroline Rose and Sturgill Simpson both emerged under your guidance. What was it about them that made you invest in their long-term growth?
Sturgill was brought to me by his manager at the time. And I had seen a previous band that Sturgill had been in. And his manager, Mark, gave me a call and said, you know, hey, remember that guy in that band that I had you come and see? I said, yeah. And he's like, Sturgill? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, he's playing downstairs because the 30 Tigers office was in the same building as the independent Grammys record store, and then the basement in the bottom floor. I said, okay, I'll be there. David Macias, owner of 30 Tigers, was still there, and I was walking out, and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm going to go down and see this guy Sturgill. And he's like, oh, yeah, I think I want to go see that too. And so he went down, and both of us were like, holy crap, yeah, we have to do this. And, you know, Sturgill, like Tom Waits, nobody A&Rs them. You just enable them. That's it. You pick up the phone when they call and you're thrilled. For the most part, it was really just not a huge story. Sturgill was the story, and it just exploded, and could not have been happier for him. But I would qualify that as something that both David Macias and I brought in together, and very proud of it. And yeah, Sturgill has an original mind. Like I said, just like Tom Waits, and who I absolutely adored. And it was an absolute pleasure to do anything Tom would call me about, or his wife would call me about, and like, oh, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, yes, I will, But A&Ring, you don't mess with talent like that. You just have to let them be who they are. And when I say enable them, you're giving them budgets to work with so they can go and make their art.
Kim, throughout your career, you've worked with hundreds of artists at this point. What are the signs that an A&R artist relationship is thriving versus when it's at risk? And how do you repair it when those challenges arise?
Can I backtrack here for a second and talk about Caroline Rose?
Sure.
So Caroline had a publicist. She was in the Northeast, and this woman, Emily, I believe was her name. And she sent me Caroline's songs. I heard them. I fell in love with them. And I got on the phone with Caroline and I said, look, keep me posted. I want to hear more. You're working on an album. I want to hear it. And I was at 30 Tigers at the time. And I decided to do something a little different. I loved Caroline so much, and I loved her brain, her voice. There's nothing that she can't do. If she wants to figure out how to make an animated video using Skittles, she'll figure it out, and then she'll make it. And that's it. I've just never seen or worked with anyone who had the ability to learn so fast and figure things out quickly. So I decided that I wanted to start a small imprint, and I wanted to be a client inside of 30 Tigers. And the label's called Little High, which was like a nod to Lost Highway, where I had just come from. And Luke Lewis helped me by investing in what I wanted to do. And I helped her put out that first national record, which is, forgetting the title here. But anyways, it was the first national push of a record. She had done one, like a vanity record that she did regionally, but this was the first one. And it was wonderful. I mean, I absolutely loved. I knew when the record came out that this was going to be a transition record, because by then Caroline was calling me going, I don't want to play acoustic guitar anymore. I want to play electric. I'm like, okay, nobody's stopping you. Yeah, go for it. And so, she just kept growing so fast right before my eyes. And so when I went to New West, eventually I was able to have her join me there over 3 records. And yeah, she's pretty special.
Wow, that's a great story. I want to ask you, I want to switch gears here for a minute and discuss with you. Many of our listeners, Kim, are interested in a career in A&R. And having transitioned from labels to independent consulting, what do you see as the biggest opportunities and challenges for A&R professionals working with indie artists today?
It's hard. I mean, it is really, really, really hard. Some of the independent consulting work I've done was trying to, weighing in on a record that the artist was making. And then once that was done, the manager and I were like, okay, now we're going to go shop this. And there are people I know that I'm sending the music to, and this artist does have a base. It's not like it's brand new and nobody's ever heard from them before. And in the end, we had 2 options, and then one of those 2 kind of backed out, and we were left with 1. And it was like, wow, people I know are not even calling me back. This is not good. And it's kind of that, are they not responding because in case something turns into a bidding war and they want to, not to have already said no if they change their mind, or, just it's hard to get a response. And it's not the first time I've experienced that. And I've heard it from others as well. The same thing. I mean, labels are getting very tight, and the need to make money is real. And they should preserve, their label and roster and know when they are taking chances on something, what they think they can accomplish, run the P&L. Let's see if it's, if we invest X amount of money, kind of return will we see. When I was at Lost Highway, I kind of philosophically, I just sort of felt like, how much money, I would love to do deals where everybody has the opportunity to succeed. So being responsible for the job and the company I work for, while at the same time advocating for the artist who has just finished a record, and you want people inside the company to understand the vision, understand who that artist is. And, the job is, you could go through 100 submissions and maybe 2 or 3 are things you want to follow up on or send messages to say, hey, just keep me posted. My door is open. Send me music, new music as you have it. Don't think it's quite ready yet, but, for those artists you think are showing early signs of that potential. And then it becomes a balance of don't want to get in there too soon, but also don't want to wait until it's too late. I've never been particularly fond of being in bidding wars, unless I was just the first one in and can't back out at that point. But there are lots of ways to do A&R. You can do it from a management company. You can do it through a publisher. Even booking agents. I mean, the creative choices that they make is going to require a lot of work on their part to get the artist ticket sales to increase over a period of time. So, it's not just the glory of signing something to a label. It really has, it's a team. And the members of those teams are all going to be pointing in the same direction of trying to build an artist and build their career.
Kim, having worked closely with countless artists in your career at this point, what's the single obstacle you've seen most often holds them back from success?
Not trusting themselves, not being willing to listen to others who perhaps have experience and are not trying to tell them what to do, but trying to help guide them on a path that helps them achieve whatever level of a success that they are capable of achieving. Not everyone's going to hit it out of the park, but, look at Lucinda Williams. She has a very healthy career as a touring artist or releasing records. She has just gift of talent. But, I just find, the biggest obstacles that I have seen, sometimes bad management can really interfere. But really, I just have to take it down to the core level of the artist and who they are and how much they believe in themselves and what they're trying to accomplish. I always say no deal is worth having if it means that you have to change who you are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Kim, throughout your life, have there been any books or films or documentaries that you have found to be particularly inspirational to you that you can recommend to our audience?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to start first with a film. 1958, the film is called A Face in the Crowd. And the story is Andy Griffith is a bit of a wild singer-songwriter. Patricia Neal is the woman who discovers him. And it's a morality tale. It's how dangerous power can be when it's put into the wrong hands. And I've gifted that DVD to many an artist. But it's a great movie. It's just so beautifully done. And this is Andy Griffith pre-Mayberry RFD. I'm dating myself. And it's just such a very special movie. Also, Jazz on a Summer's Day, which was filmed, I think, 1960 something. I can't remember the year, but it's just beautiful. I mean, it features just so much talent. Charles Mingus, Louis Armstrong, Anita O'Day. It's just gorgeous. And there's all this sort of ephemera from the location of like sailboats or little kids or ladies in the crowd with their big white sunglasses on and in their 60s summer attire. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful, documentary that is not somebody narrating it. It's just showing you clips from all these artists' performances. Just wildly great. And the Tammy Show, that's fun. Especially, I think that was started, or the event was created, I think, by Jan and Dean, filmed at the Santa Monica Civic Center in Los Angeles. And man, it was packed and loaded. I mean, it was everything from the Animals to who else? Marvin Gaye, which was particularly funny because he's sitting there like singing, "Can I Get a Witness?" And he's like, groovy and how he's dancing. And then these like girls flank him on either side with like just sweaters on and, and legs. And it's hilarious. But then towards the end, I don't know if the story is true, but I like to think it is. But the Rolling Stones were headlining. James Brown went on before them. And the story I heard, like I said, I don't know if it's true, but after James Brown went on, the Stones were like, oh my God, how are we going to follow that up? But they nailed it. I mean, what an electrifying way to end a night with James Brown and then the Rolling Stones. And the performances are just so exciting. I really thrilling piece of visual work. Highly recommend it.
And we'll share that in those in the show notes. Kim, what advice do you have for artists who are committed to building a career in music today?
Patience, perseverance, and make it real. Be who you are, be a creative voice, and, it may take a while. That's where patience comes in, and a lot of it. But, you might find somebody who's willing to manage you, who has a little bit of history under their belt of other clients that they've managed. Or you might have found yourself with a lawyer who has connections, or reaching out to someone like me. Though in my services, I can't do shopping. They can't reach out to me and say, "Oh, will you shop this for us?" It's like, no, I can't. I have to know somebody really, really well before I do that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but I have a lot of other services that I can offer and help. And if they can't do the big afford, I can do a small one of just offering advice. Yeah.
Kim, on that note, what is the best way for people to reach out to you? Is it through your website? Is it through socials if they're interested in working with you?
Through my website, kimbue.com. Pretty easy.
And they can reach you there.
Yes.
Beautiful. Kim, we want to thank you so much for
thank you
taking
so
the
much,
time
Kim.
to do this. We really, really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we are very, very grateful to you for the time.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it, and I got more stories to tell. So maybe one day there's a part 2.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Kim.
Thank you.
So glad that we had this conversation with Kim.
Yeah.
I knew this would be a great one. I really felt that she would benefit our show and our listeners. And, we always want to provide value. And here is somebody who has been at this game of A&R for such a long time.
And has been through the evolution of the industry.
Absolutely, yes, exactly, on so many different levels. One of the things that I thought was the most interesting about her in relation to perhaps maybe some of our other guests is how she talked about, the idea that her relationship building approach in terms of respecting, artists' individuality is key, and the relationship approach she had toward A&R. She wasn't looking at algorithms. She wasn't looking at the latest data. She was looking at the relationships that she had with people and with the artists themselves in terms of making those determinations. That's quite different. That's quite different in terms of the way that A&R sometimes is done today, where it just seems so distant and not personal.
Nebulous. Yeah,
nebulous. Exactly. So that was an interesting one. But then again, look who we're talking about. We're
Right.
talking about a 40-year
veteran.
veteran
Right.
who's learned from some pretty legendary people, as she mentioned.
Absolutely, Rich. One of the other areas that I loved about this conversation was the idea of the biggest obstacle for artists, not trusting themselves, not being willing to listen to others who perhaps have experience and are not trying to tell them what to do, but trying to guide and help guide them on a path. And this is something that we see time and time again. You get somebody like Kim, and you have an artist that thinks that they have all the answers, and they don't. And this is where that advice and that idea that you just mentioned, that 40-year experience, comes into play, and why we're telling insiders out there that when you do start building your team, if there's people that know, way more than you do, you have to take advice and listen to that. Whether you end up making that decision or end up sticking with what your original thought was, you need to take that all in, because you don't have all the answers. And that's something that's very missed in today's world.
I couldn't agree more. And, this is from somebody who's consistently learning, consistently growing. And, if Kim said one thing that I think is crucial for all of the listeners, it's the idea of continually educating yourself. She talked a lot, if you recall, about ownership.
Right.
And how that is so important today. But ownership, whether it's your music, your publishing, your rights, all of that, masters, that takes education, which goes to the heart of what we do here at MUBUTV. And for every one of you out there, this is why you want to continue to listen and grow and learn.
Hey, insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes and our space. You can also find us at social media at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Music Business Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch Ezra and Eric Knight. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.